I went to BSI Comics, a wonderful comic shop over in Metairie, Louisiana, for their Storage Forage Day. They do this a few times a year, bring out some older items that they're trying to clear out, and generally have some pretty good sales throughout the entire store, and today was no exception. I took the trip out with my buddy Chris, who you can see here on the right, and we, took a look around to see what we could find. The sales that they were running were 30% off all toys and 30% off of back issues and graphic novels. So not any huge discounts, but if there's something that you had your eye on for a while, like maybe a Mafex Boba Fett sitting on the throne, that's the kind of discount that'll get you to spend a little money when maybe you wouldn't have otherwise. BSI is, it's a comic shop, BSI Comics, but as is the case with most stores these days, you can't really just do one thing. You kind of got to spread your wings and cast that wide net. Hope to catch, oh, you're here for the comics. Well, hey, take a look at our toys. Oh, you're here for the toys? Well, hey, why not look at our trading cards? Oh, you like trading cards? We got magnets too. So, there's just about everything, and even though I'm primarily a toy and card collector, I love visiting comic shops, especially if it's one I haven't been to in a while. I guess what I'm saying is, it doesn't take much of an excuse to get me to travel a short distance and visit a store full of nerdy stuff. This area right at the front, when we first got here, I was kind of afraid this was going to be the entire sales section because, there was all the signs there, hadn't been to the shop in a while. So, but luckily, it was basically all throughout the store. Almost the entire store was covered in items that were discounted for the sale. And I can never get away from mini-mates. Mini-mates are one of those things, it's like, I feel like I've been buying them for my entire life. I don't know if there's ever been a time when I haven't been tempted by a box set full of little blocky men. It's all your fault, Lego. Of course, BSI is an operating comic shop, so a huge portion of their main room here is dedicated to the new issues, and I didn't really look too closely at those. It's been years, many years, since I've been a regular comic book purchaser. I do most of my comic reading through graphic novels and stuff like that, but it never is really over, if you know what I mean. Like, you're always a short step away from being right back on that wagon. I hear they had a nice little selection of these treasury editions, like oversized comics. I don't know what it is, but lately I've just been really drawn to these things, and this won't even be the last stack of these comics that I look at today. Got a shelf full of pops. Sorry if you're a pop collector, I didn't get a great view of those. But as we get closer to this set of shelves in the back here, take a look and see if any of those look familiar to you. We'll touch on that a little more later in the video, but just, if you've seen my previous videos, maybe you've seen some of these toys before. Some G.I. Joe stuff. We'll touch on that in the future. We got some graphic novels over here, some more new release comics. You know, that big monkey sure does look familiar. And that night raven? At this point, my brain was going, why is all of this looking so familiar?
We got some Black Series over here.
Any good ones? So, is that a no?
Had a nice rack of, modern toys over here. Some cool He-Man, Invincible figures, some of the reissue Ghostbusters, and a bunch of McFarlane DC. Can't help but flip through every single peg. You never know what might be hiding just behind that Superman figure that you've seen 100 times. I thought it was neat to see a DC Universe Classics figure still in the package. You know, it's not one of the best ones, but it's a Metal Man. That's pretty cool. My buddy Chris is, he's a real big fan of bargains. So anytime there's a sale on, he's gonna make sure he sees everything in the store. Even the Diamond Select figures. Yuck. You know, there is some hidden gold in those old Masterverse figures. And I got to admit, I was a little tempted by this Superman that comes with crypto. Anytime you pack in a little dog or something, you got my number. But I was able to resist this time, and I think even Chris was too. Those $35 MSRPs on the McFarlane figures are it's just really hard hill to climb, you know? They did have a whole section of runs, like comic runs, and I found one that's on my list. You may laugh at me, but I do want to someday finally read the entirety of the Deathmate series. I can still remember how big of a deal that was coming out, and I know to this day I've still not read every part of it. Y'all let me know if that's worth my time. Should I just leave well enough alone? They had a bunch of hardcovers, a bunch of the absolute editions. The ones that, in my opinion, they look better on the shelf than they do in your hands being read. But I guess, that's part of it. Had a couple of random loose figures hanging up. I think they were all McFarlane figures from the 90s. It's like, Angela and... I can't remember all their names. They were thin ladies with big swords. And I was pretty tempted by several Micro Galaxy Squadron pieces that were here. That's one of those toy lines that I just can't get away from. It's Joseph Gordon-Levitt, everybody. And then we got a Mickelson over here. Like I said, I can't resist just picking up everything that's right in front of me and seeing what might be hiding behind it. With the 30% discount, most of the prices here were, at worst, fair for what you were getting. But there was a couple of things that were well under the going rate. Especially when you factor in that you don't have to pay shipping when you're buying here.
An art craft studio? Isn't that his?
Oh yeah.
The mystery has finally been solved. Now we know why so many of these items looked so familiar to me. It's because I had just seen them a week earlier at an art craft studio in one of the booths there. If you haven't already seen my video and walking around the art craft studio, well, what are you doing? Get over there and check it out. But if you have seen it, you might remember seeing a lot of these items simply set up for sale there. And you know what? It makes sense. It's called the Storage Forage. A lot of people use their antique booths and things like that as a de facto storage unit. And, if I was going to have a sale at my store, I'd sure want to bring as much inventory, especially old inventory, that I've been sitting on for a while. I'd want to pull it out. I was somewhat tempted by this slightly horny Snake Eyes statue. It was still a little bit more than I wanted to spend on it, because at the end of the day, I'd be owning it basically as a joke. Haha, it's really funny, right? Look at those boobs. Those are hilarious. And in the same vein, we have a only slightly sexualized Baroness statue. Lots of cool stuff, It was very funny to have that scratching in my brain when I first walked in, going, why do I feel like I'm seeing the same toys that I just saw? And then have it all just crystallize and become clear. Wow. Oh, okay. I actually have seen these specific toys before, not that long ago, like a week ago.
You can get your ice chest and your cot and your tent right there.
This little dude.
And then you got a little kiddo.
That's kind of awesome, actually. It's too bad it's so small. If it was a little bigger, maybe.
That's what she said, right?
So now let's walk over and take a look at some of the comics that they brought down specifically for the sale. We have some back issues, including variant covers, got these blank sketch covers of RoboForce, Absolute Batman. The bins were at least somewhat sorted, so I knew I didn't need to look through all of them. There was no Bloodshots or Darkhawks in these. But I'm sure lots of great stuff if you know what you're looking for. I have a very specific list of high quality comic books that I'm after, and none of those was listed. Although now going back, I definitely should have bought this Mask comic book. I don't know what I was thinking. But now it's time to go up the stairs, the dreaded stairs to the second floor of BSI Comics. I could hear my knees cracking. You're welcome. I muted that for you. But part of the Storage Forage is they had some extra vendors. It wasn't just stuff from BSI Comics. There was also some folks that they brought in to have some extra wares. And in the past, there's been a lot more toys upstairs than this time, but still there was some really cool stuff, including that Python Patrol Conquest that I also saw at an Artcraft studio. This large Transformer from the Bayverse. There's a huge Ninja Turtle. And then we have a G.I. Joe Sigma 6 vehicle, which those can't have been in scale with the figures, right? That thing would have to be the size of a Buick to match up to those 12-inch action figures. Got the reissue Cobra Fang and Hiss. Got another holdover from an Artcraft studio. There's the Father Christmas from Mythic Legions. I did look through a lot of these books off camera. You won't see too much of me flipping through, just because I just never know how much of that that you guys would actually want to see. I did think this Frank Cho book looked pretty cool. The guy's really good at drawing ladies, and so he knows it. Again, no Darkhawks in these boxes, so no interest. Here's the previously mentioned Treasury editions. Like like that issue of Creepy on the front there. Oh, it's Howard the Duck. Why didn't I buy that? Maybe since my eyes are starting to get worse, the big print is attractive to the elderly me. And I do love Dick Tracy. It's all Warren Beatty's fault. It was really cool to see all of these wall books that they had set up here. I felt like I had stepped into the 90s again. All of these crazy chromium cover variants. And look at that. They did have a Darkhawk staring at me. So they must have known I was coming. But seriously, I can remember flipping through like Wizard magazine every month, and these different covers were there. It was like, okay, either they're going for the nostalgia, or they haven't updated their wall books in like 30 years. And honestly, I don't know which is true. Maybe this is just like a special museum section of the comic shop. And if that's the case, I fully support it. I think this should never be changed. In fact, I think they should just keep adding more and more classic wall books just to really lean into this theme. Once again, I couldn't find any Darkhawk comics in there. Realistically, they're probably all in the dollar bin with all the other stuff that I have decided to collect. But you know, you gotta look, right? If you don't look, then you don't know.
This is how you learn vocabulary.
Exactly.
That's how I did.
For me, it was magic cards helped a lot. That's how I know what juxtaposition is.
Reading is fundamental, and comic books are reading. So if you need something to read, BSI's got you covered. Here's the aforementioned dollar books. They're all in here, you know, outside of bags and boards. Great deal if you're just looking to read some stuff. What is the deal? This is a Suspiria comic book. Why didn't I buy that just to find out what it was? I'm sure it had nothing to do with the classic movie, but I didn't buy it, so I'll never know. Even more dollar books. Even more Valiant books. We're just about to the end of my walkthrough here, but we're not done yet. You gotta see my haul. Check it out. Hey, whoa, hey, what's up? I just got back from BSI Comics. Wonderful comic shop that I've been going to for a large portion of my life, and here's my haul. So the first thing that I knew for sure that I was gonna buy was this Dupe plush. I don't know a whole lot about Dupe, especially about his current goings on in the comics, but I loved him in the X-Statix run and the X-Force run, the Mike Allred and all of that. Still, even in those, didn't really know a whole lot about what he was actually up to, but he's a cute little, kind of creepy, kind of weird little guy, and you know, I've never seen a plush of him before, so I got it. We got this Kuricha plush. I have no idea what that means. I actually even kind of second guessed whether or not this was Dupe, just because he has these like little bumps on his head that I don't really remember Dupe having, but you know, I got a great price on this thing. You know, they had it priced $10, but then it was 30% off, so I even got an even better deal than what the store was already charging. And then the second thing and the final thing that I did buy was this Mattel Masterverse Cyclone New Eternia version. Man, I have like a real problem not buying these Masterverse figures. They're just really well done. They've always got gorgeous artwork on the side made by real human beings and people. You know, they just always do a really good job of capturing the sort of essence of the character. And then with these new Eternia ones, they add like a little bit of extra juice just to kind of, you know, reimagine this guy in a different way. So, hey, let me just get this guy out of the box real quick so you can see what I'm talking about. And then I'll let you go. All right. Yeah, all right. So here he is out of the package. You can see, you know, he looks the way you'd expect him to based on the fact that we could see him through the box. But, you know, he's got the iconic shield, the only accessory that the vintage Cyclone had. The only thing I would complain about maybe is there's no lenticular hologram type situation on his chest. That was one of the coolest things about the vintage toy. But, all right, so, you know, you can kind of see this is just like, what if Cyclone looked a little bit cooler, a little bit more fancy? And then we also have like a little face shield that can pop in place there. There we go. You know, we give him the little kind of ninja look that he had going on in the 2000X series and those toys. And then just to kind of round it all out, we got a couple of cool effects pieces that can plug into his the ports in his arms, and some fists that I'll probably never use. So that was my haul from the BSI Comics Storage Forage sale, I believe is what they called it. I had a great time. It's always fun looking around, especially when you haven't been to a shop in a while, and BSI is always a great place to visit. Let me know what you thought about my video. I hope you liked it. And until next time, let's all try to be cool. I'll see you again soon.